Step 2 of making our heart is to start working with the idea of the path, the appearance panel, and offsetting the path. So our path is the line that makes up the heart, and one of the things that we're going to want to do is to add some interest to this heart is to use the option called offset path, and that lives under object, path, offset path. And offsetting the path will move it in or out of the space that it is. So when I click on preview, you'll notice that now we have a second path that is outside of the first one. In this case, I actually want to move it inside, so I'm going to click negative 0.125, and this time you'll notice that now my path moves inside of the other one. And I want a rounded point. I'm going to zoom in here so that you can see what this does. I'm going to focus just on this little point. You'll notice when we go back to that object, path, offset, path, this gives us the opportunity to talk about what these options do. The join is where the 2 points make a corner. And in this case, I'm going to go back to negative 0.125 so that we go inside. You can see that when it offsets the path, in this case I get a flat line. And maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want a rounded line. The things that are going to affect that are the distance, so the miter limit, how far or how close does that point need to be before it changes, and what is the shape. So I can choose a rounded join, I can choose a mitered join, and this is an angular shape as opposed to a rectangle there, or I can choose a bevel. The bevel and the miter are, the bevel is going to be always that square shape. The miter will be angled, so this point, unless it is smaller than the miter limit, the distance. So I'm going to set that at 6 so we get a nice angle, and I'm going to click OK. Then if I go view, fit artboard and window, then we can see that we have this nice double path. And in my layers panel now I have my original path and a secondary path. And notice that the offset path was placed on top of my original path. And I can tell that because in my layers panel the path is at the bottom and then I have another path on top. I'm going to go ahead and change the fill color of my original path to pink so that you can see it. So the next thing that we want to do is play with the stroke of our new path, this new offset path that we created. It is its own path, so we can edit the stroke of that path. We can edit the width, make it very thick or very thin. And on the next to the word, or next to the weight, we have this blue highlighted word stroke. I can access this several places. I can access it up here in the options panel, or I can access it over here in the appearance panel. Both of those will allow me to edit the stroke of this heart. We also have the stroke panel in our palettes, and oftentimes when I click that I just get this small stroke option with just the weight. But if I go to the flyout menu in the upper right hand corner, I can choose show options, and then I get the full panel there as well. Here I have the option to add a cap to my stroke. That will add just a little bit of an extra to the end. And in this case I want to make a scalloped stroke around my heart. So I'm going to need to choose the rounded cap and the rounded corner. And I'm going to go ahead and leave my stroke where it is. I'm going to make it a little thicker. I'm going to go with 10 points. And I'm going to check the box that says dashed line. Now when I check this, you'll notice that automatically I get a default amount of 12 points, and I get these rounded sort of hot dog looking lines. Well, that's close to what I want, but what I really want is a nice little scallop. So what I need to do in this case is to change the dash amount to 0 points. And you'll notice when I do that, now I get a solid line, and I'm going to change the gap. Also, I'm going to make my gap 5 points. And you notice now I have just a little bit of rounded scallop edge. That's not quite as much as I want, so I'm going to go ahead and move that up a little bit. Now you can click in the gap box and use the up and down arrows on your keyboard to manage that gap live so that you can see the spacing. As you click your up arrow, the size will go up. As you click the down arrow, the size will go down. And I'm going to set mine right about 9 points. I think that's just about perfect. And if I wanted, I could also add arrowheads to the beginning of the line. You notice there's an assortment of arrowheads and dingbats and scissors. Also, I can add them to the end of the line. If I add those, I'll have some scaling options, and I can also change the profile. The profile, remember, is the shape of the line from the beginning to the end. So if I wanted to change that, I could do that there. In this case, I think I'm pretty okay with just the default, which is none or uniform. And I want to change my stroke color to white. So now I have white stroke. When I zoom back out, you'll be able to see that now I have a white scalloped edge. And I'm going to go back to our pink heart, and I'm going to alter the stroke on that heart as well. Again, this time I'm going to click in the appearance panel on the blue stroke link and bring that up. I'm going to choose a rounded cap and a dashed line. I'm going to make mine much larger. This time I think I'll go 18 points, and I'm going to have to change the width of the scallop also. Looks like 17 is pretty good, and I'm going to change the color to hot pink, magenta. Now I'm going to choose my top path, and again I'm going to go up to Object, Path, Offset Path, and when I click Preview, I can see that if I bring it in again, I'm going to get another path inside again, the last one. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And this path is actually in front of my other path, and it uses the same line and stroke options that I had on the path that I duplicated. So in this case I now have, let's change the color so we can see what we're looking at, a pink dotted line and a white fill. If I change that to magenta, then we have another of that same heart, but in this case I want no fill, and I want to work with my stroke again because this time I would like a dotted stroke. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, maybe 5 points, and I'm going to increase the spacing so that I have a nice dotted line. So that's our offset path. We'll be looking at some other options to make more ornamentation in the next video.